When we think of the Saturday of Holy Week, a question that commonly arises, which actually goes back many centuries, is simply this: what was Jesus doing on this middle day? We know that, of course, on the prior day he had been crucified, and on the very next day he would be raised from the dead. But what was his soul? What was his existence like on this middle day, knowing that, of course, his body was resting in the grave? Scripture doesn't really give us a whole lot to go on, of course. All we really know is that the women were forbidden from doing the proper burial procedures for him because, of course, it was the Sabbath day. And this state of Jesus on this time in between his crucifixion and his resurrection is picked up in the Apostles' Creed in the clause that reads like this: he descended into hell. And the church fathers, as well as the reformers in particular, were quite divided as to what exactly this clause means and how we should understand it biblically. Some argued that it simply meant that Jesus bore the total punishment or the torment of hell on our behalf. Others argue that it simply refers to the fact that he really was good and dead, that he endured the full gambit of what death would be, someone resting in the grave, and that he went to that extent as a dead physical body. And then others would argue, in line with what the general eschatological understanding would have been for Judaism at the time of Jesus' life, that Jesus, when he quote-unquote descended into hell, he actually went to Sheol, the Hebrew term for the underworld or Hades, where the saints of the Old Testament, like Abraham or David or whomever, were sort of waiting in some sort of relative sense of peace for the resurrection, and that Jesus went there. That's what it means by he descended into hell, to liberate them and take their souls with him to heaven to be with God, therefore being the pioneer of all of us who, when we die, as Paul would say in 2 Corinthians 5, we get to go to be in the presence of God. And there's good arguments for all three, and there could be some combination that makes the most sense of the biblical evidence, particularly in light of the book of Hebrews. But regardless, what we do know are a few certain things. First, we know that Jesus bore the fullness of God's wrath, the full weight of the judgment of God when he died on the cross, that he didn't need necessarily to go down into the bowels of hell. We also know that Jesus truly went to the place of the dead. Paul describes it multiple times as Jesus being raised from, and it's a plural, the dead ones. That is, he was among the truly dead ones, not just that he was resuscitated somehow by an ancient defibrillator or something like that. And we do know that whatever he experienced on this silent Saturday was for us, so that we might not have to experience it. And so as you reflect on the silence of Saturday, may the idea that Jesus descended to hell for you, whatever that may mean, and again, we're not 100% sure how to take it and how to read all the biblical evidence, whatever it means, whatever the fullness of the death and suffering of Jesus, whatever took place on that day was for you and for me. And may the silence, may the numinous dread of the Saturday between Good Friday and Easter Sunday drive you all the more with hopeful anticipation of the Easter morning sunrise. May God bless you on this Saturday of Holy Week.